Thank you for staying with us. The much-awaited verdict of the 2023 Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal has been delivered, but the impact is still reverberating nationwide. The five-man panel dismissed the petitions filed by candidates of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, and the Labour Party, Peter Obi, for failing to prove claims of irregularities against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress, APC, in the February 25th election. Atiku and Obi have rejected the judgment and vowed to challenge it at the Supreme Court. So, Babajide Kolade, Otitoju, and other guests saw this coming in our discussions in the issues decided by the tribunal. Let's share some of it with you.
They have valid grounds to say that they won the election. Facts are what they are. Obi can weep as much as he wants, but it will not validate the fact that he was defeated in this election.
The FCT election don't not count much.
No, the FCT is viewed. There have been 2 court cases.
Okay.
One decided by the Supreme Court, showing that you do not have to win the FCT to be elected. If you score the mandatory 25% in 24 states, even if you didn't score 25% in the FCT, you will be you are good to go. But some people in this season think that they can simply hoodwink or lie to Nigerians. They are now making it look like no president can be validly elected until he has won Abuja or until he has recorded 25% in Abuja.
In the
FCT. It is ignorance peddling, and it's a very shameful level of ignorance peddling. That if he does not get 25% in Abuja, he can't be elected. There's nowhere in the world where anybody has come up with that kind of law. Democracy is a very simple thing. You have the majority of the votes. You have the majority of the votes and the required spread. That is the route to the presidency.
Yeah.
The people in Abuja, they don't have 2 heads. The people who live in Abuja, they don't have 2 heads.
You know, they are comparing our constitution and our election to WAEC results. That WAEC will tell you that you must have 5 credits, including English and Maths.
Yeah.
And I said, this one is not like WAEC. It's like premiership, that just have the number of points, whether you beat the
if
top
I get
team,
them correctly now, if I get their ridiculous logic
very
correctly,
ridiculous.
what they are saying is that Arsenal can beat anybody, but because it has not been able to beat Man City,
Man City.
It should not,
therefore it should not be crowned. It should not be crowned as a
Honestly, that's what
Premier
they're
League
trying
winner.
to say.
What is supposed to determine how the judges will come to their conclusions is the evidence put forward before the tribunal, not what people out there are saying. How many international observers, for example, came to our country? Less than 100 international observers observed from the EU observed the election in our country, less than 100. And we are talking about more than 170,000 polling centers. So 100 persons are certainly not enough. And we are saying they are not even up to 100. Those, the EU observers, are certainly not enough to assess how the election went in totality. What we see is the result of apprehension, nothing else. If you read the story completely and not just busy yourself with the headline and a few paragraphs, you will see clearly that there is apprehension. You see clearly that some people expect the judgment to go along a particular line. It is not your place to expect the judgment to go in a particular line. You are not the judiciary. Let the judiciary exercise its mandate. And its mandate is to look at the totality of the evidence before it and come to its conclusion. A retired Chief Justice of the Federation once said that evidence is like building a house. If you do not provide the necessary material, the building will collapse. So if you come before a court and you fail to provide all of the evidence needed to enable you win the case, you are going to lose. So this matter will be decided in the final analysis based on the quantum of evidence available to those judges to work on.
Welcome back. Jude, all eyes on the judiciary. Now, it's done and dusted. Now, let's look at the key issues in the 2023 presidential election, Jude.
Yeah, the 2023 election was particularly very emotive, especially because the front runner, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was a front runner from the beginning. The front runner elected to go for a Muslim ticket, and that ruffled feathers. Many people felt that that was insensitive. Many people felt he should have picked a Christian from northern Nigeria, but he knew that he would not win the election if he did that. Because even in 1993, when we were not as polarized as we are today, Abiola had to choose a candidate from, he had to pick his deputy from the northeast, from a majority tribe in a part of the northeast. So, in the northeast. So, Tinubu knew from the beginning that from his calculations, he knew that if he picked a Christian, he would not win the election. And yes, many of us as Christians did not find that funny, but the man was not in the race to impress us. He was in the race to win. He wanted to win, and he was prepared to do whatever he needed to do legally to win. So he opted for a ticket that made so many pastors to be angry, made so many Christians to be angry, and even some Muslims who wanted to exploit the situation kept arguing that, oh, what he did was wrong and he will not win the election. We saw some real impotent boasting on the part of some Christians from the north, saying that he will not, especially people like Babashir Lawal, who fell out with him, and he said Bola will not be elected president. You know, these days we hardly hear anything from Babashir Lawal, who was actually one of those who encouraged Asiwaju to contest the election in the first place. So that decision polarized our people, polarized our country, and for that, many have not forgiven him, and they did all that they could do to make sure that he did not win the election. And even after he won the election, they continued to push for him not to be inaugurated. People like Baba Onayekon continue to push that, oh, he cannot be inaugurated. Whereas they watched Obasanjo and others inaugurated way before their matters were decided in court. Obasanjo's matter in respect of the 2023 election was decided in 2006. I mean, in respect of the 2003 election was decided in 2006. I was in the Supreme Court to cover the judgment. So 3 good years. But our people, some of them were not even prepared to wait for 1 month. But in the end, other matters, including the fact that people were angry with the APC administration. Remember fuel scarcity
was such a terrible thing in the weeks leading to the election. The issue of the Naira repainting by the worst CBN governor in Nigerian history. It also happened during that time. So all of those things made the election very emotive and extremely competitive. So from that point, you will not be surprised that even when the judgment has come, people are not prepared to accept it. There are many people today who will only believe that the judiciary has done well when the judgment favors them. It's such a bad thing that we are only happy with the judiciary when the judgment is in our favor. When the judgment is not in our favor, we say, oh, the judiciary has done badly.
Democracy
it's just
dead.
Like a weak student. Yes, it's just like a weak student. When he scores anything above 50, he will say, I scored 60. But if he scored 45 or 48, he will say, the teacher gave me 48. That is how we are. But at some point, we have to stop and ask ourselves, what do we gain from this kind of abhorrent behavior? Elections have come and gone. People must be ready to play the game by its rules. When you lose, agree that you lose and congratulate the winner, rather than eating up the polity and making it look like, oh, as long as I do not win, then the election couldn't have been free and fair. As long as the judges do not decide in my favor, then the judges must have been compromised. Come on. That has to stop at some point.
All right. Okay. Well, let's look at this 25% issue. It was tested and decided.
Well, I hope that somebody will not wake up tomorrow again and be talking about 25%. See, how can you come third? I mean, I will now claim that, Justice Mistura Bolaji Yusuf, while reading the judgment, he said, in their evidence, in their wild goose chase, while dumping the evidence on them, he said, on this 25% issue, he said they now wrote in capital and 25% in Abuja. She emphasized that. And I think I give kudos to Justice Mistura. I mean, they spell her name Misitura in the log of the appeal court. Mistura. She was the cynosure of all eyes yesterday. Fantastic. The other judges did well. But you see, how can you expect that because you score 25% in Abuja, only you, LP here, score 25% in Abuja, whereas you didn't even have spread. You only have 25% in, I think, less than 20 other states. The law says 25% in at least 24 states. And in this instance, now we believe that Abuja is, quote and unquote, a state where Wike is now the governor general, quote and unquote. So, for you to win an election, not only in Abuja, the people in Abuja have been to Abuja some few times. They don't have two heads. They also walk with two legs. So why would they be more important than me from Ekiti? Ekiti was the first state to return 100% for Asiwaju. So are you saying that those of us in Ekiti, because our Yoruba is not too fluent, you say we are not part of this equation? Or you from Ondo, that your language is very close to that of your dialect is very close to those from Delta. They say you are not that those from Abuja are more Nigerian than you are. It's a no. It is 25% in 24 states, including or excluding Abuja. Abuja is as good as any other state in the federation. Abuja is a federal constituency when it comes to presidential elections. We have said this thing, and I wonder how some lawyers Senior advocates of Nigeria will go to the Supreme Court and argue that. And that's why the woman, Justice, was very mad at them. I said, do you expect this court to go on the streets or into the market state and fetch evidence for you? When you have 133,000 agents all over the country and you cannot produce one evidence. And you are now, I mean, they've been quiet on social media now. They have been quiet a bit. But I know as they are warming up to the Supreme Court, maybe their voice will start coming up again. But we want them.
The petition also faced the alleged double registration of the vice president, and it laid it to rest.
I think first of all, I wish to commend all the parties, either Labour Party, PDP, and APC. I think what Nigerians expect is justice for Labour Party, justice for PDP, and justice for APC, and justice for the society itself. For going to court is an admission of the fact that you want to accept the outcome of the judgment. And I think they're also aware that all the parties are aware that there's a terminal date, which is maximum of 180 days. So for going to court, I think it enriches democracy, instead of resorting to violence. And I also think we have made some progress, like Babajide said. In the past, it used to be waiting for 3 years, 3.5 years. So I think we are making some progress. And then I hope that lawyers, political parties, and all the stakeholders will learn from the presentation of the judges, the learned judges. Because if you read up that lasted for so many hours, take your time to read it. You will see that they were thorough. And it was like the operation of a surgeon. They treated every strand on its own merit. There was none that was isolated. And when you look at the way they presented their, the judgment, you will know that when facts are, when you see the truth, it starts you, in your face.
Yeah.
Because the question I've just mentioned about double registration, one of the judges said he describes it as estopre parem judicatum. That is a case that has been decided by highest authorities. There was no need bringing such issues again.
Tribunal.
Then, there are also so many cases that have to do with pre-election matters that ordinarily should not have been brought, before the tribunal. And I think something is significant. The judgment was unanimous. There was no dissenting opinion. And I think in my view, we are trying to enrich democracy. But when you look at the fact that, if you look at that judgment, is the way the day will look, you can judge from the morning. If you look at this judgment, it gives us an idea of where the pendulum at the Supreme Court may likely swing. Because yes, there's a need to go to the Supreme Court. Because if you are having elimination series in a football, and a football team is down by 98-0, and you now want to go to the final, to meet up without deficit, it's not going to be an easy thing. We must also not forget that you need a very good lawyer. Look at Wole Olanipekun, the years of experience, the number. I've monitored the cases he has handled. There is need you need to be diligent. When you are presenting your petition, you must show experience, you must show understanding, you must show clear vision about what the law says. So I think there is a lot of technical issues. Even when I was reading the position of the lawyer of the Labour Party, he said we are going to go to court, and he mentioned one thing. He said out of 30 witnesses, 10, are struck out. Yeah. And I'm wondering, in an election in 36 states, you are having just 13 witnesses. They need to go and study the election case in Ekiti State, Ekiti, Edo, Osun, and see the effort put in. The group, the AC at that time, went to London to get forensic experts. Yeah. 63.
Adrian 40.
Yes, 63 of them. 50 of them were from the from the British police. Yeah, 50 of them. And they worked for 6 months. And they had to deal with 1.3 million votes. And if you look at that, special case, they isolated 63 votes. They were not talking about malpractices in all the, but in this case, the petitioner is talking about malpractices in 176,000 polling units. That's contradictory because it also affects your own polling units. That's the point. Irregularities in 8,000 wards out of 8,806. So it means that you're also saying that in your own area there are irregularities. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of contradictions that.
Okay, now the issue of transmission of results through IREV also was taken to court, and it was also cleared by this judgment.
Yes, and I am not surprised because that matter was decided in the Osun Tribunal, the Osun Tribunal matter. In the contest between Oyetola and Adeleke, which got to the Supreme Court. At the level of the appeal court, that matter was decided. There is no law that stipulates that INEC must post results on IREF in real time. I've said it repeatedly. Some people have been abusing me, but it's what the judges said in deciding the Osun governorship in favor of Adeleke, because Oyetola brought issues. Oyetola's lawyers brought issues around IREF, and they decided conclusively that you don't have to post results on IREF in real time, which means if INEC decides to post it 2 days later, 5 days later, 10 days later, it is well within INEC's right to do so. In any case, as I've said repeatedly, the primary evidence lies in Form EC8A, which is the result sheet collected from polling centers. That result sheet, the police will have their copy, DSS will have their copy, and agents of all the parties. That is your primary source of evidence. It is the same result sheet that is usually photographed and posted on IREV. So building a case on IREV is potentially fatal, and the judges, Supreme Court judges, Appeal Court judges have decided that already in the Oyetola versus Adeleke. So they should have expected that is the way it will end. In any case, the law also permits INEC to determine the modus of transmission of results that it wishes, whether manual or electronic. So this is the thing. For me, I wasn't surprised after reading. I picked up valuable lessons reading the judgment in the case of Oyetola, because I had expected that Oyetola, having won at the lower tribunal, will go on to win even in the final court. But the judges said, one, the other judges on the panel at the tribunal one of them did not write his judgment. That it is mandatory for judges to put their conclusions in writing. And I saw that on May 28th this year, when the Supreme Court decided on Shetima's so-called double registration, each of those judges actually put his conclusions in writing. So because it didn't happen in the case of Oyetola, it was fatal to Oyetola's case. They also ruled that while Oyetola's lawyers affirmed that Adeleke was parading our streets with fake results, that they needed to have brought the principal of his school to confirm whether that certificate emanated from their school.
Okay.
They also ruled on the matter of. So naturally, I wasn't surprised that the matter of IREV was decided in that matter, and I have spoken about it before. So I'm not surprised.